Jordan Miles had dedicated countless years to building his aviation empire as the visionary CEO of Skylux Airlines, one of the nation's most esteemed luxury carriers. His tireless efforts had created a brand known far and wide for its excellence. Yet, despite his immense success and wealth, Jordan was never one to flaunt his affluence. He firmly believed that true power lay in humility and respect. On this particular evening, Jordan was on his way to attend a prestigious business summit in New York. However, instead of taking the convenience of his private jet, he chose to fly aboard one of his own commercial flights.
Why?
To personally experience the service his airline provided and ensure it met the high standards he had worked so hard to establish. Casually dressed in a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, Jordan approached the VIP check-in counter, carrying nothing but a designer backpack. As he neared the first-class lounge, he was met with a sharp-eyed gate agent named Rebecca. She took one quick, appraising glance at him, scanning his attire and demeanor from head to toe. Her lips tightened into a thin line as she stepped forward and blocked his path, her tone stiff and authoritative. "Sir, this area is for first-class passengers only," she said, making it clear she didn't recognize him as someone who would belong there. Without missing a beat, Jordan raised an eyebrow. "I know," he responded in a calm and steady voice. "I'm flying first class." Rebecca's lips curled into a thin, forced smile, her gaze fixed on him as if evaluating his very existence. "First-class tickets for this route start at $10,000, she said, emphasizing the price as if it would be the deciding factor. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" Jordan let out a slow exhale, suppressing a hint of a smirk. He had encountered this type of judgment many times before, but it never failed to disappoint him. "Here's my boarding pass," he replied, handing it over with quiet confidence. Rebecca barely glanced at it before shaking her head dismissively. "Sorry, but we have strict policies," she said, the skepticism in her voice clear. "We can't allow upgrades through reward points or last-minute purchases in first class." Jordan chuckled lightly, keeping his composure. "I didn't use points," he replied with a slight edge in his voice. "I booked this ticket weeks ago." Rebecca pursed her lips, clearly not convinced. "I'll have to verify that with a supervisor," she said, signaling for security. "In the meantime, please step aside so we can assist our other VIP guests." Before Jordan could respond, a new voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Mr. Miles?" A man in a crisp, navy blue suit hurried toward him, his face pale with panic. It was David Langston, the regional manager for the airline. He was visibly horrified as he approached, his voice trembling with nervousness as he stopped right in front of Jordan. "Sir, I had no idea you were flying with us today," David stammered, turning to Rebecca with a look of disbelief. "Do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" he asked, his voice now laced with frustration. Rebecca's frown deepened, clearly confused. "He's just a—" She paused, her words faltering as a sudden realization hit her like a freight train. Her eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. David sighed deeply, shaking his head. "This is Jordan Miles," he said sharply, his voice taking on a firm, commanding tone. "The owner of this airline." Rebecca's face drained of color, her cheeks turning ghostly white. She stammered as she tried to apologize. I didn't know," she muttered, unable to hide her shock. Jordan remained unfazed, his voice steady as he corrected her. "You didn't bother to find out," he said coolly. "Instead, you assumed I didn't belong." The entire lounge fell into a stunned silence. Other passengers and staff who had been watching the exchange now stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief at the turn of events. David turned back to Jordan, his face tight with frustration. "Sir, this is completely unacceptable," he said, his voice firm now. "I assure you, we will be reviewing our staff training immediately." Jordan gave Rebecca a long, measured look. "Respect should be shown to everyone, not just those who appear to belong," he said evenly. "I built this airline to provide a world-class experience for all passengers, and I won't tolerate discrimination of any kind in my company." Rebecca swallowed nervously, realizing the gravity of her mistake. "I sincerely apologize, Mr. Miles," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just following procedure." Jordan nodded politely, cutting her off with a soft, controlled response. "Then make sure your procedures include treating every customer with dignity." He turned to David, his expression unwavering. "Let's ensure this never happens again." David nodded vigorously, his tone now more composed. "Absolutely, sir. Consider it handled." Without saying another word, Jordan walked past Rebecca, who was still standing there in stunned silence. He made his way into the first-class lounge, where a flight attendant, now visibly nervous, rushed forward to escort him to his suite. The cabin crew scrambled to ensure every detail was perfect, eager to provide the best service possible. A fresh glass of champagne was placed gently on his tray table, and the lead flight attendant leaned in, her smile anxious yet hopeful. "Is there anything we can do to make your flight more comfortable, Mr. Miles?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jordan took a sip of his drink, then smiled back at her. "Just a smooth flight," he replied calmly. As the plane ascended into the sky, Jordan leaned back in his seat, feeling a sense of satisfaction. He had worked tirelessly to reach the top, and he would never allow anyone to make him feel like he didn't belong. From that moment on, no one, under his airline's name, would ever make that same mistake again.